She thought she was testing love, but love was quietly testing her. Before we dive in, make sure to tap that subscribe button. You don't want to miss tomorrow's story. It's going to blow your mind. And hey, drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. The city glittered below Evelyn Carlisle's penthouse window like a constellation built by ambition. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Flawless makeup, silver hair pulled tight, pearls gleaming like armor. Everything about her screamed control. Control had kept her safe after her husband died. Control had made her son, Adrian, a millionaire before 30. And control, she told herself, would now protect him from making the biggest mistake of his life. Evelyn folded the morning paper with precise movements, her eyes pausing on the headline about Adrian's latest real estate venture. Below it, a smaller picture. Adrian, smiling, arm around his fiancée, Lila Bennett. The name itself sounded harmless, but Evelyn's instincts tightened like a fist. A schoolteacher, pretty, soft-spoken, from a working-class family, and about to marry into one of the wealthiest circles in the city. She didn't mean to distrust the girl. Not exactly. But Evelyn had seen too much. The false smiles, the hands reaching for what wasn't theirs. Love, she believed, always had a price tag. "Mother," Adrian had said over dinner the night before, his tone careful. "Please just give her a chance, she's not like the others." Evelyn had smiled, thin and gracious. "Of course, darling." But inside, a quiet storm had begun. Across town, in a classroom filled with laughter and spilled paint, Lila Bennett was wiping a streak of blue from her cheek. Her students adored her, especially the ones who didn't fit anywhere else. She saw herself in them, uncertain, hopeful, longing to be enough. She checked her phone between lessons. A message from Adrian. "Mom's hosting the engagement dinner next week. Don't stress, she'll love you." Lila smiled, though her stomach fluttered. She'd heard whispers about Evelyn Carlisle, the kind of woman who could cut through glass with her tone. "Love you too," she texted back, slipping the phone away before her hands could tremble. When the final bell rang, she stayed behind to help a shy student finish a drawing of a rose garden. "You know," she said gently, "sometimes things that look impossible just need patience." She smiled at the child, not realizing that those same words would soon define her own life. That evening, Evelyn sat across from her friend and confidant Margaret, in the velvet glow of a private lounge. "You're really considering it?" Margaret whispered, lowering her voice. Evelyn stirred her tea. "A simple test. I'll take a position at Adrian's company for a week. Temporary staff, background access. The janitorial service runs through my foundation. No one will suspect. I want to see how she treats people who have nothing to offer her." Margaret frowned. "And if she passes your little test?" "Then I'll bless their union," Evelyn said. "But if she fails?" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Outside, rain began to tap against the window, a gentle percussion to her resolve. For a moment, Evelyn wondered if she was crossing a line. But then she remembered her son's heartbreaks, the women who smiled for cameras and whispered about bank accounts. "Love," she murmured, "should never be that easy." The next morning, Lila walked through the glass doors of Carlisle Enterprises, clutching a portfolio of art proposals. She was planning a charity program for the company's youth initiative, a project Adrian had encouraged. She wanted to make a good impression, not as his fiancée, but as someone who could give something meaningful. At the far end of the lobby, a new janitor wheeled a mop bucket past the marble floor. Her gray uniform blended into the sterile space, head slightly bowed. But if one looked closely, there was poise in the way she carried herself, a grace that didn't belong in fluorescent light. Lila smiled at her. "Good morning." The janitor hesitated, surprised. "Morning," she said softly. Her voice carried that steady authority that only comes from women used to commanding rooms. But Lila didn't notice. She was already hurrying toward the elevators, leaving behind the faint scent of paint and lavender. "Evelyn," beneath her disguise, watched her go. The mop handle felt cold against her palm. She'd expected arrogance, indifference. Instead, she'd been met with warmth. It unsettled her. That night, as Evelyn removed her wig and gloves, she caught her reflection again. Without the pearls, without the armor, she looked human. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure if she liked the woman staring back. "Just 1 week," she whispered to the empty room. "Then I'll know the truth." The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above, and Evelyn's reflection shimmered in the bucket of soapy water. She'd never imagined herself here. Rubber gloves on, uniform creased, mop in hand. Each motion felt foreign, like she was erasing herself one stroke at a time. She reminded herself of the plan. Observe, listen, do not feel. But that resolve faltered the moment Lila Bennett walked into the building. Lila carried a box of art supplies pressed to her chest, her fingers smudged with charcoal. She looked slightly out of place among the sleek suits and designer heels, yet she moved with quiet confidence. Evelyn studied her discreetly from the corner, Lila's gentle greeting to the receptionist, the way she held the elevator door open for a flustered intern. Small gestures, almost invisible, but sincere. Too practiced, Evelyn wondered. Or genuine. The elevator dinged. Evelyn caught a fleeting glimpse of Lila's reflection in the mirrored doors. Open, kind eyes. Then the doors closed, and Evelyn was left alone with her skepticism. By noon, the office cafeteria hummed with chatter. Evelyn wiped tables along the edges, unnoticed, her ears tuned to the flow of conversation. She didn't have to wait long before she heard the name. "Lila Bennett," one of the assistants whispered, stirring her salad with too much interest. "She's marrying Adrian Carlisle. You think she knows what she's getting into?" Her companion snorted. "Knows exactly what she's getting into. A lifetime of luxury. Some people are just lucky." Evelyn's grip on the rag tightened. The bitterness in their tone mirrored her own hidden doubts. Then a new voice joined in, soft, but firm. "Maybe," Lila said, setting her tray down beside them. "Some people are just loved." The table went silent. Evelyn froze mid-wipe. "I didn't mean," the assistant began. "It's fine," Lila interrupted with a small, nervous laugh. "But for what it's worth, I'd love Adrian if he were still teaching piano lessons in his apartment. He hasn't changed. That's what I fell in love with." Evelyn didn't breathe. She just watched. When Lila finished eating, she cleared her tray, then turned to the janitor still wiping the next table. "Long day?" Lila asked kindly. Evelyn blinked, thrown off. "It's work," she murmured, lowering her eyes to hide the flicker of guilt. "Well," Lila said with a warm grin, "you make the place feel brighter." Then she was gone, leaving Evelyn standing with a rag in her hand and a truth she didn't want to accept. That evening, Evelyn lingered by the lobby window as rain glazed the city in silver. She caught sight of Lila again, helping an elderly security guard carry boxes to his car, laughing at something he said. There was no audience, no camera, no reason to pretend. Evelyn's chest tightened. For the first time, she felt her own reflection judging her back. Perhaps this girl is smarter than she looks, Evelyn reasoned. Kindness is an investment, too. But her thoughts no longer sounded convincing. The next morning, Lila found Evelyn mopping near the boardroom and offered her a coffee. "I didn't know if you liked it black or sweet, so I just guessed both," she said, handing her a cup with a shy smile. Evelyn hesitated. "You didn't need to." "I know," Lila replied softly, "but sometimes it's nice to do what's not needed." Evelyn took the cup. Steam rose between them like a fragile truce. The warmth seeped through her gloves, and with it came a strange ache in her chest, a mix of regret and recognition. Later, during a meeting presentation, Lila stood before the executives, including Adrian, showcasing her art initiative for underprivileged kids. Evelyn lingered near the door, sweeping but watching. Lila's voice trembled at first, then grew steadier. Art gives children the freedom to express what they can't yet say. We could be part of that voice. Applause followed. Adrian's eyes shone with pride. But what caught Evelyn wasn't the performance. It was the quiet after. When everyone left, Lila stayed behind to pick up stray papers, humming softly. Evelyn approached to collect trash from the bin. "You did well," Evelyn said before she could stop herself. Lila turned, surprised, then smiled. "Thanks. Guess I was nervous." "You didn't show it. Maybe that's because someone once told me that confidence is just pretending you belong until you actually do." Evelyn tilted her head. "And do you feel like you belong here?" Lila's smile faltered. "Not yet, but I want to." There it was, the flicker of vulnerability Evelyn hadn't expected. It stayed with her long after she clocked out, haunting her through the long elevator ride home. That night, as she sat alone in her suite, Evelyn replayed the day in her mind. Lila's words echoed louder than any applause. "Not yet, but I want to." She thought of her son, his laughter, his easy trust, and suddenly, her plan didn't feel like protection. It felt like betrayal. Evelyn poured herself a glass of wine and stared at the city's glow. She'd come here to expose a liar, but the only dishonesty she'd encountered so far was her own. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "I'll look closer. There's always something to uncover." But deep down, she feared the truth had already found her. Do you think Lila's kindness is genuine? Or could Evelyn still be right to doubt her? Drop your thoughts below. Would you trust someone so perfect? The sound of the mop sliding over tile echoed through the quiet hallway. Each stroke was rhythmic, almost meditative, but inside Evelyn Carlisle's mind, nothing was still. For 3 days, she had watched Lila Bennett. 3 days of quiet smiles, polite hellos, small acts of kindness that seemed too good to be real. No one is that selfless, Evelyn told herself. No one. But every night, when she peeled off the rubber gloves and stared into the mirror of her disguise, her certainty wavered a little more. The woman looking back at her, gray uniform, softened eyes, wasn't Evelyn Carlisle, the widow of a banking magnate. She was just Evelyn, and she wasn't sure she liked how much that woman felt. That morning, Evelyn found Lila alone in the break room, rinsing out paintbrushes. The room smelled faintly of turpentine and coffee. Lila's hair was tied loosely, a few strands framing her face, and she hummed softly under her breath. "You paint," Evelyn said quietly, pretending to wipe the counter beside her. Lila smiled, glancing over her shoulder. "Trying to teach the interns some basics for our art drive next week. You'd be surprised how many grown adults are afraid of color." Evelyn raised a brow. "Afraid?" Lila laughed gently. "Of making a mess, of not getting it right." She wrung out a brush and shrugged. "I guess everyone's scared of being seen for who they really are." The words hit Evelyn harder than she expected. For a moment, she almost forgot she was supposed to be invisible. If only you knew who you were talking to, she thought bitterly. By lunchtime, Evelyn had convinced herself to pull back. She was here to observe, not befriend. Her mission was to find proof, something concrete that justified her distrust. She got her chance that afternoon. From the corner of the corridor, she overheard Lila on the phone. Her tone was urgent, her voice low. "No, I can't take that money," Lila whispered. "Please, just use it for the shelter. Those kids need it more than I do. I'll figure something out for the tuition later." Evelyn paused, her heart stuttering. "Tuition?" Then came the second voice, Lila's friend perhaps, muffled through the phone. "You're too generous, Lila. Adrian doesn't even know you're still paying that off." Evelyn gripped the handle of her cart, torn between admiration and confusion. If Lila was acting, she was the best she'd ever seen. But the tremor in Lila's voice didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded like sacrifice. That evening, Lila lingered in the lobby, sorting through files. Evelyn approached with a garbage bag, keeping her head bowed. "Leaving late again?" Evelyn asked casually. Lila gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, I guess I'm just trying too hard." "Trying?" Lila hesitated, then sighed. "Adrian's mom. She's this incredible woman, powerful, graceful, everything I'm not. I keep thinking if I do everything right, maybe she'll see I'm good for him." Evelyn froze. The air seemed to still between them. Lila looked down, fiddling with her pendant. "I know it's silly, but I lost my mom when I was 16. Sometimes when I think about meeting his mother, I want her to see me." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Maybe she will," she said softly. Lila smiled. "Maybe." Then glancing at Evelyn, she added, "You remind me of her, you know. Not the cleaning part, just the way you listen." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I doubt that." "She used to say," Lila continued, touching the pendant, "kind hearts don't shout, they just keep showing up." Evelyn couldn't answer. She just nodded, blinking back the tears that burned behind her eyes. That night, Evelyn stood before her mirror again, scrubbing the makeup from her face until only the raw truth remained. "Kind hearts don't shout," she whispered, hearing Lila's voice replay in her head. For the first time in years, she didn't recognize herself. The disguise wasn't the uniform. It was the woman she'd been before she put it on. Her phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. "Dinner tomorrow, Mom? Lila wants to cook for you soon. Please say yes." Evelyn typed a reply, then deleted it. She couldn't face them, not yet. She looked at her reflection one more time, caught between guilt and defiance. "I'm not done," she whispered to her reflection. "Not until I know everything." But even as she said it, she knew she wasn't searching for Lila's truth anymore. She was searching for her own. Rain had a way of softening everything, the skyline, the noise, even Evelyn Carlisle's edges. It fell in sheets against the glass walls of Carlisle Enterprises, turning the city outside into a watercolor blur. By 5 o'clock, most employees had rushed home, but Lila Bennett stayed, hunched over a pile of sketches in the dim conference room. Evelyn lingered near the entrance with her mop and cart, pretending to clean, though every fiber of her body longed to rest. Thunder cracked across the sky, followed by a voice over the intercom. "Attention, staff. Due to flash flooding, please remain indoors until further notice." The lobby lights flickered. The building sighed under the storm's weight. Evelyn exhaled, half in irritation, half in relief. Fate, it seemed, had no intention of letting her leave. Lila stepped into the hallway, hugging her sketchbook to her chest. When she spotted Evelyn, her face brightened with surprise. "You're still here?" Evelyn forced a small smile. "Apparently, so are you. I was finishing the art plans. Guess we're both trapped." "Seems that way." The two women stood in awkward silence for a beat, thunder filling the space between them. Then Lila's eyes lit up. "There's food in the lounge, vending machine stuff, but better than starving. Come on." Evelyn started to refuse, instinctively retreating behind dignity. But the words that came out surprised her. "All right." They sat together in the employee lounge, the hum of the vending machine their only soundtrack. Lila tore open a bag of chips, sliding it across the table. Evelyn stared at it, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. "It's not caviar," Lila teased gently. "But it'll do." Evelyn chuckled, an unfamiliar sound that felt strange on her lips. "You're very adaptable." Lila shrugged. "Life's easier that way." Evelyn studied her closely. No makeup now, just rain-damp hair and tired eyes. Yet she seemed utterly at peace. "Most people I know," Evelyn said, choosing her words carefully, "spend their lives trying to look content. You seem to just be it." Lila tilted her head. "Maybe because I've lost enough to know what's worth keeping." Something flickered in Evelyn's chest, a soft ache, like a wound remembering itself. Your mother, she said quietly. You mentioned losing her. Lila nodded. She died of cancer when I was 16. She used to tell me, if love doesn't humble you, it isn't real. Took me years to understand that. Evelyn looked down at her gloved hands. And do you think you've found it now? Real love. Lila smiled faintly. I think I found someone who lets me be myself. That's close enough to real. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain outside softened to a steady rhythm as if listening. Later, when lightning cut through the sky, the power flickered and the room went dark. Lila laughed nervously. Great. Now it's just us and the thunder. Evelyn felt something stir inside her, a strange comfort in the shared stillness. Don't be afraid, she said quietly. I'm not, Lila replied, her voice gentle. Storms make me feel alive. Evelyn smiled despite herself. You're an odd girl. Maybe, Lila said, but oddness keeps life interesting. Evelyn found herself laughing again. Not the polite kind of laughter she offered at social galas, but the unguarded kind that felt warm and startlingly human. Hours passed. They talked about nothing and everything, Evelyn's past life as a caregiver, a lie but one she told with half-truth sincerity, Lila's dreams of opening a free art studio, the loneliness that hides behind success. When the rain finally began to fade, Lila leaned back in her chair. You know, she said softly, I used to think love was about perfection, about finding someone who never hurts you, but now I think it's about finding someone who makes the hurt worth it. Evelyn stared at her, unable to reply. In that single sentence, Lila had dismantled everything Evelyn believed about love, trust, and protection. For the first time, Evelyn wondered if she'd been protecting Adrian, or herself. As dawn brushed pale light across the windows, the city emerged from its watery haze. Lila stood, stretching. Looks like it's over. Yes, Evelyn murmured. It is. But her tone carried a weight even she didn't understand. They gathered their things, and before Lila left, she turned and said, You're easy to talk to. I hope we bump into each other again. Evelyn nodded, her throat tight. I'm sure we will. When Lila disappeared into the elevator, Evelyn sat back down, staring at the empty chair across from her. For the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't expected from anyone. Not respect, not admiration, but connection. And that terrified her. The following Monday, the city seemed scrubbed clean from the storm, but inside Evelyn Carlyle, something lingered, a quiet disquiet she couldn't shake. She arrived early at Carlyle Enterprises, her janitor's uniform pressed and spotless, as though neatness could restore the order she'd lost. But every sweep of the mop reminded her of Lila's laugh during the blackout, the warmth of that vending machine dinner, and the haunting softness of her words. If love doesn't humble you, it isn't real. Evelyn had spent her life mistaking control for love. Now, she wasn't sure she knew the difference anymore. Around noon, she saw Lila again. The young woman was in the art room, sleeves rolled to her elbows, surrounded by color. Paint streaked her forearms, her hair was pinned messily, and she was smiling. A smile that looked like sunlight had decided to live behind her eyes. Evelyn pretended to tidy up nearby, but she couldn't help pausing to watch. Lila noticed her and waved. You have good timing, she said. I could use a second opinion. Evelyn approached cautiously. On what? Lila held up a canvas. It wasn't perfect, just a swirl of reds and grays and a faint outline of a rose. I'm thinking of giving this to Adrian's mother, she said quietly. I've been painting it for her. Evelyn's breath caught. Why? Because she loved roses, Lila said, smiling shyly. At least that's what Adrian told me. He said when she used to host events, she always had white roses in the house. I thought she might like to know someone remembered. Evelyn had to look away. Her heart squeezed painfully. She's painting for me, she thought, and she doesn't even know who I am. They sat together for a while, Lila working in silence, Evelyn pretending to clean but secretly mesmerized by the girl's concentration. Then Evelyn noticed something small but gleaming, a silver pendant hanging from Lila's neck. It was shaped like a rosebud, the metal slightly tarnished from age. "That's lovely," Evelyn said softly. "Was it a gift?" Lila glanced down, her expression shifting. "It was my mother's. She used to wear it every day until she couldn't anymore." Evelyn set down her mop, her voice gentling. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," Lila murmured, brushing her thumb over the pendant. "Before she passed, she told me this would remind me that love isn't about what we say, it's what we do. She said, 'One day someone will love you the way I wanted to, but first, you have to be that person for someone else.'" Evelyn swallowed hard. The room seemed to shrink around them. Be that person for someone else. Lila smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "I guess that's why I try so hard to love people right, even when it's difficult." Evelyn's throat tightened. "That's rare," she managed. Lila laughed quietly. "Maybe foolish too. But it's how I was raised." They sat in companionable silence after that. The hum of the air conditioner, the faint scent of acrylic paint, the rhythm of two hearts slowly learning to trust. Later that afternoon, Evelyn slipped out of the art room and headed to her son's office, the janitor's cart rolling behind her. Through the glass door, she saw Adrian and Lila together, Lila leaning over his desk, laughing at something he'd drawn. They looked effortlessly happy. For a fleeting second, Evelyn saw not a gold digger or a risk, but two young people who simply belonged. She turned away quickly, blinking back tears she couldn't justify. That night, Evelyn sat on her bed, holding one of her late husband's cufflinks between her fingers. She remembered their own beginning, how he'd proposed with trembling hands and no fortune to his name. Back then, love had been simple, unpolished, true. When had she started believing it needed testing? The reflection in the vanity mirror didn't answer. She thought of Lila's pendant again, the small, weathered rose that had survived grief, time, and fear, a token of something real. And here I am hiding behind a lie, she realized, pretending to sweep floors while she sweeps my soul clean. The irony was suffocating. The next morning, Evelyn came to work early. She found the art room empty except for the finished painting, a crimson rose against a stormy gray background. A small note was taped to the corner. "For the woman who taught me that grace doesn't need to be seen to exist. Lila." Evelyn pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The note wasn't meant for the janitor, but somehow it reached her anyway. And for the first time in years, Evelyn cried. Not from anger, not from regret, but from the quiet ache of recognition. Have you ever realized someone you judged was actually mirroring the best part of you? What pendant moment, big or small, made you see someone differently? The week that followed felt different, lighter, quieter, but charged with something unspoken. Evelyn found herself looking forward to the moments she crossed paths with Lila. Sometimes they exchanged a few words, sometimes just a smile. It wasn't duty anymore. It was connection. The world outside still saw a janitor and a young woman in love with the boss's son. But to Evelyn, every shared glance felt like a confession neither dared to voice. That Thursday, the company held its annual charity drive. Evelyn stood at the edge of the grand lobby, polishing brass railings while the city's elite drifted through in glittering gowns and tailored suits. She had once ruled over these events, her name on every plaque, her approval the crown everyone sought. Now, dressed in gray and holding a cleaning rag, she was invisible. And yet, for the first time, she didn't mind. Lila moved gracefully through the crowd, smiling, greeting donors arranging art pieces for the auction. Her laughter bubbled like champagne, and her sincerity filled the room with warmth. Evelyn watched her the way a sculptor might watch a masterpiece take form, not with envy but awe. Midway through the evening, Lila spotted Evelyn near the refreshment table and made her way over. "Don't tell me you're working through the whole event," she teased. Evelyn smirked. "Old habits." "Well, I'm declaring a break. Come on, dance floor's open." Evelyn blinked. "Dance? Me?" Lila grinned mischievously. "Just one song. No one's watching." Before Evelyn could protest, Lila grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the edge of the crowd. The band was playing an old jazz number. Slow, nostalgic. The kind of music that made hearts remember things they wanted to forget. Evelyn hesitated, then let herself move. Not gracefully, but freely. Lila twirled beside her, laughing as they spun beneath the soft light. For a moment, age, class, and deception disappeared. There were just two women, one rediscovering joy, the other unknowingly teaching it. When the song ended, Lila was breathless. "You're a natural," Evelyn chuckled, out of breath herself. "I haven't danced in years." "Well," Lila said with a grin, "you should. You look happy when you do." They sat together afterward, sipping punch at a side table. Lila leaned back, sighing. "You know, for all the fancy dresses and money in this room, you might be the only real person here." Evelyn raised a brow. "That's not saying much." "It's saying everything." Lila smiled, tracing the rim of her cup. "You listen. You see people. Most don't bother." Evelyn's heart squeezed. "Maybe I've learned to see what I used to overlook." Lila turned toward her, curiosity in her eyes. "You ever lose someone?" Evelyn hesitated. "My husband." "I'm sorry," Lila said softly. "It was a long time ago, but I suppose I never stopped missing him. He used to remind me to look for the good in people. I stopped doing that after he died." Lila nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to start again." Something broke open inside Evelyn then. Not in pain, but in release. She wanted to tell her everything, the truth, the test, the disguise. But the words stuck, because for the first time she didn't want to be the woman who tested love. She wanted to be someone capable of it. As the evening ended, a drizzle began outside, gentle, forgiving. Lila offered her umbrella. "You'll catch cold." Evelyn shook her head. "Keep it. I like the rain." Lila laughed. "You and your storms." Evelyn smiled faintly. "They teach us things sunshine never could." They stood there for a heartbeat longer, eyes meeting, both unaware of the quiet miracle taking place, two souls unknowingly healing each other. When Lila walked away, Evelyn whispered to herself, "If love doesn't humble you, it isn't real." And for the first time, she understood. The next morning began too quietly. Something in the air felt off, like the stillness before thunder. Evelyn could sense it from the moment she stepped into the lobby. Whispers lingered like smoke. Employees stared longer than usual. Something had shifted, and she didn't know why, until she saw Adrian pacing in his office, phone pressed to his ear, voice clipped with disbelief. Lila was there too, pale, trembling, her eyes red-rimmed. Evelyn froze by the elevator, hidden in plain sight. "So it's true?" Adrian's voice cracked through the silence. "My mother's been here all this time? Pretending to be a janitor?" Evelyn's blood turned to ice. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Lila stepped forward, pleading. "Adrian, she wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Please, just listen." "How can you defend her?" he snapped. "She's been spying on us, Lila, on you." "She was protecting you." "Protecting me?" Adrian's laugh was hollow. "By lying to everyone? By humiliating herself and you?" Evelyn wanted to run. Instead, she stepped forward, slowly, shakily, and pushed open the glass door. Both of them turned. The look on her son's face cut her like glass. "Mom," he said quietly, the word sharp as a blade. "How could you?" Evelyn's disguise felt heavier than ever. The gray uniform, the gloves, the scent of bleach. She reached for the only truth she could find. "I needed to know." she said softly. To see if you were safe. To know if she loved you for who you are, not what you have. Adrian shook his head. And the only way you could do that was by deceiving everyone? By turning love into a test? I thought I was protecting you, Evelyn whispered. No, he said, voice trembling. You were protecting your fear. The words hit harder than any accusation. Lila stepped closer. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes held tears. You didn't need to test me, Mrs. Carlyle. You just needed to know me. Evelyn swallowed hard. You have no idea what people will do for money. I know exactly what people will do for love, Lila interrupted, her voice shaking. I've cleaned houses, worked double shifts, and gone without sleep just to help kids who didn't even know my name. And you thought I'd throw that away for a last name? Evelyn's chest heaved. You looked at me and saw a threat, Lila said, tears spilling. But I looked at you and saw the mother I always wished I had. The room went dead silent. Adrian turned away, running a hand through his hair. I can't do this right now. Adrian, please. Evelyn stepped forward, reaching for him, but he moved past her, out the door, leaving her and Lila alone in the echo of everything broken. The silence was unbearable. Evelyn finally whispered, You're right. I did see a threat, because you reminded me of everything I lost, the innocence, the faith, the belief that love didn't need proof. Lila's voice softened, trembling. Then why couldn't you just say that? Because I didn't know it until now. Evelyn looked down at her trembling hands. You humbled me, Lila, and I hated it. But now, I think I needed it. Lila wiped her tears. Humility isn't weakness, Mrs. Carlyle. It's love's first language. Evelyn looked up, eyes wet, voice breaking. Then I've been mute for far too long. Lila turned to leave, but before she did, she placed her mother's rose pendant on the desk. I don't think I can see Adrian right now, she said quietly. But give him this. It's not meant for punishment. It's for forgiveness. I think we all need a little of that. Evelyn picked up the pendant with trembling fingers, the tiny rose cold against her skin, and for the first time in years she dropped to her knees, not out of defeat but out of surrender. The woman who thought she was testing love finally realized love had been testing her all along. That night, the Carlyle mansion felt cavernous and empty. Evelyn sat alone in her late husband's study, the pendant resting beside the framed photo of their wedding day. Robert, she whispered to the picture, I failed your lesson, didn't I? You told me to trust people, to lead with grace. I forgot. The rain began outside, soft and familiar, tapping gently against the window like forgiveness knocking. She closed her eyes and let it in. When pride meets love, one must break. Which one do you think gives way first? Have you ever been humbled by love the way Evelyn was? Share your thoughts. I'd love to know. The next day dawned gray and windless, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Evelyn sat by the window of her study, the rose pendant resting in her palm. She turned it over and over, as though trying to unlock some secret hidden in its silver curves. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she remembered, not because of time, but because of truth. When had she become this woman? Someone who loved so fiercely that she forgot how to love gently. She thought of Adrian's face when he said, You were protecting your fear. And Lila's voice whispering, Humility isn't weakness. It's love's first language. The words haunted her because they were right. She had built her life around control, and now it had cost her the very thing she'd been trying to protect, her son's trust and the heart of the woman who truly loved him. That afternoon, she called Adrian. He didn't answer. She texted. Nothing. Hours passed. The silence stretched. Evelyn could have justified herself, explained, defended, spun her actions into noble intentions. That was her old instinct. But this time, she didn't want to be right. She wanted to be real. So she wrote a letter. My dearest son, I thought I was guarding you from heartbreak, but I see now I was guarding myself from faith. I forgot that love, like any seed, needs to be trusted with open hands, not locked in glass. If Lila can forgive me, it will be a miracle. If you can, it will be grace. But even if you don't, I will love you for the rest of my days. This time, without conditions. Mom. She folded it carefully, placed the pendant inside, and drove across the city in the rain. Lila's apartment was small, modest, with light spilling warmly from the windows. Evelyn stood outside for a long moment before knocking. When the door opened, Lila froze. She looked exhausted, eyes swollen from crying, hair pulled back messily. Mrs. Carlyle, she said quietly. Evelyn nodded, her voice trembling. Please. May I come in? Lila hesitated, then stepped aside. Evelyn took in the cozy space, the art supplies scattered across the table, unfinished canvases leaning against the wall. It was a room full of color and heart, everything Evelyn's mansion lacked. She turned to Lila. I don't deserve your time, but I came to give you something. She handed over the envelope. Lila frowned, opening it. The pendant slid into her hand, cool and familiar. I think, Evelyn said softly, your mother meant for it to find its way back to love, not to sit in shame. Lila's lip trembled. You don't have to. Yes, Evelyn interrupted gently. I do. You were right. I tested love because I didn't trust it. But you lived it. You reminded me who I was before I became afraid of losing everything. For a moment, silence filled the room except for the faint hum of rain outside. Then Lila whispered, You hurt me. I know. Evelyn's eyes glistened, and I would undo it all if I could. But since I can't, I'll do the only thing left. Ask for forgiveness and promise to be better. Lila looked down at the pendant, thumb brushing its surface. You're not who I thought you were. Evelyn smiled faintly. Neither am I. A long pause hung between them, fragile, trembling, full of the possibility of healing. Then Lila stepped closer. Do you love your son? With everything I am, Evelyn said without hesitation. Then fight for him, Lila whispered. But not with control, with truth. Evelyn nodded, tears spilling freely now. And you? Do you still love him? Lila smiled sadly. Enough to wait until he's ready to forgive us both. When Evelyn left, the rain had stopped. The city shimmered, washed clean under the faint glow of streetlights. She stood beneath one, breathing in the scent of wet earth and renewal. For the first time in her life, Evelyn Carlyle felt small, and it was beautiful. She didn't know if Adrian would forgive her. She didn't know if Lila would ever fully trust her again. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would no longer hide behind love. She would finally live it. When you've broken someone's trust, what matters more? Being forgiven or becoming someone worthy of forgiveness? Which would you choose? 2 weeks passed. The city bloomed again, bright and alive, as if winter itself had decided to give love another chance. Evelyn sat in her garden that morning, not her manicured rose garden tended by staff, but the small patch she'd begun caring for herself. Her hands were dirt-streaked, her nails unpolished, but her heart was cleaner than it had been in decades. She watered the white roses, the same ones she once demanded be perfect, and smiled when she saw one bloom crooked. For the first time, imperfection looked beautiful. That afternoon, a car pulled into the driveway. Evelyn looked up and froze. Adrian stepped out, tall and solemn in a gray coat. He looked older somehow, not in age, but in the quiet way grief refines love. Evelyn rose slowly. Adrian, she whispered. He approached, eyes searching hers. I got your letter. She nodded, voice trembling. And? He hesitated. At first, I was angry. I felt humiliated, but then I realized, maybe you were just scared of losing me. I was, she admitted. And in trying not to lose you, I nearly did. Adrian's jaw tightened, eyes glistening. Lila told me what you said to her. She forgave you. Evelyn's breath caught. She did? She said you reminded her of her mother. Stubborn, protective, but good-hearted underneath. Evelyn smiled through tears. I don't deserve that kindness. Maybe not, Adrian said softly. But you've earned a second chance. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. Evelyn gasped, then clung to him as if her heart might collapse under the relief. I'm sorry, she whispered. For the lies, for the fear, for everything. I know, Adrian murmured into her shoulder. But I think we both learned something. Love doesn't need to be tested. It needs to be trusted. Evelyn nodded, sobbing quietly. Your father would be proud of you. A gentle breeze swept through the garden. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian reached into his pocket and held out a small velvet box. She wanted me to give you this. Inside was the rose pendant, Lila's pendant. She said, Adrian continued, that she wants to start over. Not just with me, but with you too. Dinner tonight, her place. No lies. Just love. Evelyn touched the pendant, her throat tight. She still wants me there? Adrian smiled faintly. She said families don't break, they bend. Evelyn let out a soft laugh, tears still glistening. Then I suppose I'll bring dessert. That evening, Evelyn stood nervously outside Lila's apartment, clutching a homemade pie, her late husband's recipe. She hadn't baked in years. Her heart thudded as she knocked. The door opened. Lila stood there, dressed simply, her eyes warm and cautious. Adrian hovered behind her, smiling gently. For a heartbeat, none of them spoke. Then Evelyn did something she hadn't done in decades. She bowed her head. I was wrong, she said softly. Not just about you, but about what love should look like. Lila's eyes glistened. And what does it look like now? Evelyn lifted her gaze, her voice trembling. Like this, imperfect, humble, alive. Lila stepped forward, tears spilling as she embraced her. Welcome home, Mrs. Carlyle. Evelyn held her tight. Just Evelyn, please. Adrian wrapped his arms around them both, and for the first time, love didn't feel like a test. It felt like truth. Later that night, they sat around the small kitchen table, sharing food, laughter, and old stories. The pendant rested between them, catching the light like a promise. Evelyn looked at the two of them, her son and the woman who'd taught her to love again, and felt the quiet peace of redemption settle over her. The storm was gone. The lesson remained. She had thought she was testing love. But love, patient and unyielding, had been testing her all along. And finally, she had passed. Have you ever realized love was trying to teach you something? About trust, humility, or forgiveness? What lesson did your storm leave behind? Share your story below. It might just inspire someone who needs hope tonight. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, you're going to love the next one. It's even crazier, more intriguing, and full of twists you won't see coming. So don't miss out. Click the video on your screen right now and jump straight into the next story.